Hello 2360 students. I hope everyone had a great last couple of weeks. So I wanted to start with our course calendar so you can see kind of where we are and kind of where we're headed for the rest of the semester. So you'll see we are working on Module 7. So if to recap, we have been working on implementing inclusive early childhood programs. So part 1 we did in Module 5, which is really how do you facilitate development of skills. And then the second part was really looking at managing those challenging behaviors. So now we're moving into what is your role of early childhood as a teacher. So that's where our focus is going to draw for this module. So as you can see, this is going to continue your work with your case study child. So you will actually be implementing a behavior lesson plan as well as an adaptive lesson plan. Something interesting I do want to note is that you will not have a module quiz for Module 7. So no quiz because you do have those 2 assignments there. After that, it will be our makeup period. So April 28th through May 1st is our makeup period, as well as doing our wrap-up activity. So this is going to be like what you've learned discussion, your course feedback, post-test, all those things that we're going to complete. So we'll probably get that done during this April 28th through May 1st. Obviously, there's not going to be a final for this course, so you don't have to worry about that, but you do have to complete those course activities. So we'll talk about that in the next week's video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into Module 7. So in Module 7, really is talking about what is your role. Through the overview. So with this final module, it's kind of a wrap-up. We have been working with our case study child all semester, right? So with this module, we're really exploring what is the key characteristics, responsibility, the knowledge, and resources for effective teachers. And for effective teaching practices, what does that look like when we talk about reflecting on challenges in the classroom, professionalism? If you remember in your inclusive practices field work, there is a reflection piece that talks about this, right? That's part of being an educator is the reflective piece. So when we begin with lesson 7.1, really looks at a foundation point, right? It talks about an inclusive setting. And then going into 7.2 is really covering the current issues that we're facing in early childhood. Looking specifically at-risk population, looking at those sorts of challenges in early childhood programs. So what you'll be doing is you'll be reading your textbook chapters, you'll go in through lessons 7.1 and 7.2, and then also the provided links that I have. You will be completing your 2 lessons for Module 7. So let's go ahead and look at our learning objectives and focus. So with our learning objectives, after completing Module 7 with lessons 7.1 and 7.2, you're going to be able to identify the key characteristics of effective teachers and inclusive programs for young children. You should be able to discuss current issues and challenges facing the field of early childhood and special education, and identify professional organizations and potential career paths within early childhood and special education. Now, these module objectives are going to help us meet these course outcomes, okay? Now, as always, I give you guided questions for each lesson. So lesson 7.1, I want you to look at these questions to help guide you through the lesson. And then lesson 7.2, I have a couple questions that help will guide you through that section as well. To read chapter 11 in your textbook, The Exceptional Child, and it's called Characteristics of Effective Teachers and Inclusive Programs. I also have linked this DEC recommended practices. It does have a pop quiz in there, which is relevant components, meaning it's going to give you feedback to what you're learning with Module 7. So take a look at that. There is vocabulary here. You will see it not only in your textbook, but you will see it throughout the lessons as well. look specifically at lesson 7.1, the first lesson. So 7.1 is really going to go back to reminder of why. Why are you an educator in early childhood? Why are you doing this? Then we move into what your role is. What should you be doing? When we talk about the role, what does that look like when we're saying an effective teacher? What are those personal characteristics that define an effective teacher? And then how do you ensure you set your classroom up for good learning experiences for your children? Okay, so that encompasses lesson 7.1. 7.2, again, is talking about those challenges that we see in early childhood. These diversity, poverty and homelessness, health needs, teachers not being prepared for inclusive classrooms in early childhood. What are some professional organizations and advocacy that could help you? So that's all encompassing lesson 7.2. Let's go ahead and get into your assignments, okay? As you'll see here, there's quite a few things that you'll have to do, so there is no quiz listed down there. So let's look at the first one, which is your behavior case study. Again, you're going to use the same child you've been working on for your disability PowerPoint, your transition plan, your embedded opportunities. Now we're looking at using that child for a behavior plan, okay? So whenever we are looking at challenges in early childhood, one of them is behavior. So to complete a functional behavior assessment means you have to gather data, right? You have to collect it, and you're going to figure out what's the function of the behavior, meaning create a hypothesis of why you think the behavior is happening, and then create what we call a behavior intervention plan, or a BIP. Now the BIP, or BIP, can address behaviors across different contexts. However, there's a simpler way to do this, which is what we call ABC, which stands for antecedent, which is a trigger, behavior, what they are distributing or displaying, and consequence, what happens when the child displays this behavior. So there's a chart that helps you with the hypothesis of the behavior, why you think it's happening, and helps you create a behavior intervention plan. So your goal is to really demonstrate and understand the key components of an ABC data, right? The key components of creating your hypothesis about why you think something's happening. There are some strategies to help replace those unwanted behaviors. What is the consequences if they don't do what they're supposed to, or when they do the right thing, right? So here's your instructions for this assignment. You're going to select a challenging behavior. Now you're thinking, where can I find this? There is all this information inside of your case study. So what you're going to do is choose one specific challenging behavior that the child, your case study child that you're working with, that's displaying. The behavior should be based on the observation notes provided. Okay? So when I say observation notes provided, look down here. You're going to see all the names of the child. You're looking for your specific case study child. So we have observation notes for your child. So you're going to look at that, and you're going to choose one of those behaviors. You're going to focus on addressing that challenging behavior. Okay? So if you try to address too many behaviors at one time, you really face resistance, right? And you don't get much progress. So it's really important for you to be successful by focusing on one behavior at a time, okay? And create an intervention. So once you look at the challenging behavior of your case study child, you pick it, you pick which one you're focusing on. Now you're ready to complete what we call your behavior plan chart. So you're going to use the behavior plan chart to record your analysis and your plan, okay? Now, how do you use this form? This is in chapter 18 of your textbook, and also if you go back to lesson 6.2, the information is in there. Again, we're making connections. We're pulling what we did from chapter 6 into our module 7. Now, here is the behavior plan chart that you are going to complete. Okay, now remember, the explanation of how to use this form is covered in lesson 6.2, so you need to use that as a reference, as well as using your chapter 18 as a reference to help you complete this behavior plan chart. I have a graded rubric here that is going to help you, right? These are the things I'm looking for. Here are our standards, our objectives. And here are things I'm grading you on. Okay, so let's open up plan chart and let you see it. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. Let's try that again. It's trying to wake itself. Okay, so here it is. So what you're going to do is put the case study child's name here. You're going to fill this out. So remember, you're going to have to use those observation notes to help you complete this. But what we're looking for is you to support the child. So what I want you to do first is look at that behavior anecdotal notes. Put one of those behaviors, remember you're only doing one, what the child's doing in here. Trigger is meaning antecedent. What happens that triggers that behavior? So what happens right before that behavior occurs, and then maintaining the consequence, right? So what is going on? How do they reprimand the child, right? What do they say when this, or do to the child when this behavior occurs? Next, you're going to put hypothesis of function. This is creating a statement of what you think is going on, why the child is doing what they're doing. Now that we have good indication and idea, now we're going to teach the child new skills to replace that bad behavior or challenging behavior. So you're going to put the new skills you want the child to be able to do. So you're going to do one skill. What are you going to do to prevent that trigger? So how are you going to prevent a trigger, right? So how are we going to make sure we incorporate these new skills? So what kind of strategies are you going to use to help you replace that behavior? And again, go back to lesson 6.2. Go back to chapter 18 in your textbook to help you with filling out this part of the behavior plan chart. Now, if the child is going back and reverting to their old ways, which is challenging behavior, when you're trying to teach these new skills, what are you going to do and how will you respond? If the child is doing really well and they're responding to the new strategies, right, and the new skills you're teaching them, how are you going to respond? Okay, so you have to respond to both ways, and that's what you will put in this chart. Okay, so that's the first part that you're going to be completing. The second thing that you're going to be doing is lesson. Let's go back to our lessons here. Okay, so you went through all those lessons, doing case study adaptive plans. So what you're going to do is you're going to select one lesson. Okay, so you'll see here, you're going to see your case study child, and there's 2 lessons, but I only want you to pick one of them. But I still would encourage you to go through both to see which one kind of speaks to you. And what you're going to do is you were going to look at this information and save it. Okay, you do need to submit this with your lesson plan. Okay, and the reason why is because you're going to save it and you're going to change some stuff with it. So what do I mean by that? So let's say Lily is your case study child and we chose the first lesson. So I'm going to get Lily's lesson pulled up here. And I apologize for it being so slow, but it's trying to wake up. Okay, so you'll see here's the lesson. What we want Lily to be able to do, what's the big idea? We want her to be able to look at different movements of people or things. We want her to contribute to the creation of the web around the theme of doors. Okay, so it tells you what the big idea of the lesson is, but then we have an objective specifically for Lily of what we want her to be able to do, right? We want her to create a web of idea around this theme. These are the materials and this is the procedure. So what you have to do is read through the entire lesson. You're going to make some adaptations. This means that you're going to change some things, okay? And we're going to talk about in just a minute what I'm looking for. But you'll see there's the lesson itself, what they do with the center times, the standards they're going to have to meet. This is the entire lesson. You will need to download and save this because you're going to make your changes directly inside of this lesson, and that's what you will submit. Now, when you are making changes, it's important for me to be able to see. A lot of students will put red with their changes and type in red, which helps. And then at the end of the lesson is where you're going to do your extra part, which is your evaluation and reflective piece. Okay, your justifications, if you will go underneath the lesson. So that's why I said you will have to save this. Okay, so that's the first thing. And when you're looking at this lesson plan adaptation, the first thing you had to do was to select your child's lesson you were using, and then you were going to save it. Okay, so what you had to do, let me go to the part underneath it. Okay, sorry. You were going to click the last one. The last one is the individual lesson plan. So what you're going to do is you're going to adapt the lesson. So what we've already saved there, you're going to look at these components. These components make up an actual lesson plan. You have your title of the lesson, the objective, the standards. These are either going to be the ELDs for Tennessee or the K-3 standards. Okay, so whatever is for your child's specific age. You have your materials and preparation, format, how you're going to complete the lesson, large group, small group, individual, the lesson procedures, and how you will assess that child has met the objectives. So now that you see these, you're going to see some little asterisks, right? Okay. So each of the lesson plan components are marked with that little asterisk, okay, and they're underlined. So anything that you see with an asterisk and that's underlined can be adapted, which means that you can make changes. Not all parts of the lesson needs to be changed. You're going to look at what needs to be modified and accommodations need to be made. So what you can do is either in red or italicize it or put in parentheses, some way to differentiate what the original lesson is. I like color font because it helps me to distinguish with the adaptations and modifications that are made with the original lesson plan. And what you're going to do is make changes to them. Now, at the bottom of the lesson plan, I said, is where you're going to make your justifications. You will tell me why you think that those need to be changed, right? How is it going to support the child's objective? Okay, so remember, you are going to do the least intrusive adaptation, which means that first we change the environment, then if that doesn't work, we change the activity or routine, then if we need to, we change the materials. Then lastly, we change the instruction or how we present it. And then if that doesn't work, we can use actual physical assistance, right? But there's a rule to it that we always do the least intrusive. So think about that when you're going through and making these modifications. Now, I want you to also look in the instructions part. It says that you can list additional extensions for the activity that might help the child. So those could be added as well. Okay. I put a checklist here for you to make sure that you look through the actual assignment and you completed all the components I'm asking for, right? Don't forget you have to write that justification at the bottom of your lesson plan. And this will be submitted to Dropbox. Now, I did want to go back up here because you'll see this discussion activity. You do not have to worry about that right now. That's part of our closing activities. I only want you to worry about these three right now. If you want to go ahead and complete the discussion activity, you can, but that's not going to be until the last week with our wrap-up activities. So you're going to be completing your behavior case study and then your case study assignment, which is going to be adapting that lesson plan. Okay, so you see three things here, but really you're just doing two. This is just helping you and giving you the actual lesson that you'll need. All right, so that pretty much wraps up Module 7. Remember, this is a 2-week 2-week module. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I do want to encourage you to continue to go back to your original case study child, because always have that pulled up when you're doing any of your case study work, because that helps you gather more information that you need to be able to support your case study child. All right, I hope everyone has a great 2 weeks, and until next time, take care.